Thank you so much, Lori. And thank you very much to all of you, Sophus and your team, for the kind invitation. It's an absolute privilege and pleasure to be here. Tak for diai, motokome ide. Thank you. I've been working on that all day. I really appreciate being a part of such an inspirational dialogue, and I hope to share a few insights based on 20 minutes of a little story about a carpet tile manufacturer that made a decision to pursue a bit of a different path. And there are some insights from biology that I thought might be worth sharing, might inspire some questions. I do feel a bit self-conscious sometimes during speaking engagements. I don't necessarily have a lot of answers to share, but maybe raise a few more questions. My background is in ecology and education, actually, and you might be wondering, well, what's an ecologist doing, working with the world's largest carpet tile manufacturer? And a little bit of background here. In grad school, I came to the realization that I had been studying a very traditional approach to ecology, where ecologists were studying other living organisms in their ecosystems, so relationships between abiotic and biotic environments. And there was nothing really about humans in those more traditional ecological studies, and some thought leaders have added the word human to ecology to sort of point out that disconnect, that in order to really talk about sustainable solutions, reinventing economies, we need to break down that separation, that false separation perhaps between humans and the natural world. And wouldn't you know it, during my grad studies, I start learning about models of industrial ecology and carpet companies like Intetrface that has decided to pursue a bit of a different path based on a mind shift, rethinking its relationship with the natural world. So that's a little piece of the story that I'd like to share with you today. This different path that I've been referring to began in 1994. Some of you might be familiar with Intetrface's founder, Ray Anderson, and I appreciated Sophus and Umar's plug earlier this afternoon, referring to Intetrface as a radical business, an example of radical industry. The company wasn't always this radical. Ray founded the company in 1973, and it was in 1994 when Ray was inspired to think very differently about the purpose of this company, of Intetrface. Some might say, and he would describe his moment of inspiration as being CEO of the world's largest carpet tile manufacturer, thinking about what kind of legacy he was leaving behind as an individual, but also rethinking what kind of legacy his company was leaving behind. He was inspired by advocates and authors like Paul Hawken, who wrote a book called The Ecology of Commerce. Some of you might be familiar with it. And it really began to shift Ray's perspective. So starting to think about the institution of business and industry, all of the power, wealth, and resources behind it, as perhaps the only institution that can really lead humankind in a different direction, but it's the same institution that perhaps at cause of this crisis of crises that we're faced with, global climate destabilization, ecological depletion, habitat loss, extreme poverty, etc. It was in those moments where he felt like this is an opportunity not only to make a difference, but perhaps also to show the rest of the industrial world that there must be a better way. Can we imagine designing a carpet company based on natural systems where there is no such thing as waste? What Umar Hague was talking about earlier as circular production. These are not new concepts, but to radically change a company, an entire company's philosophy, operations around this, does not happen overnight. And I have a few insights to share around how this absolutely cannot be done alone, and collaboration is at the very heart of this. So Ray and Intetrface began to ask very different questions, began to pay attention to a number of different variables that the company wasn't paying attention to before. All of a sudden, a new language began to emerge around monitoring the metabolism of the company, and this was beyond financial metrics, but also looking at ecological metrics, social metrics, all of the inputs and outputs going through the company. So water consumption, energy consumption, waste, emissions. We began to pay attention to all of these different things. This is a new way of thinking, looking for, asking different questions around how would nature make or design a floor. These were questions that weren't asked before. Developing a new sense of purpose around being a model restorative enterprise, all the while reflecting on the importance of humility. This journey began with a focus on eliminating the concept of waste, and I think something that was really powerful with beginning the journey with some solid metrics around the impact and the opportunities around redesigning a company around sustainability led to some... Oh, the slides are not moving through. I'm so sorry. I'm going through these slides and I didn't realize they're not shifting. Why don't I just continue without the slides? That's probably best. Okay. Oh my goodness. So I had all these lovely images of carpet, and I'm just kidding. This is not a pitch by any means. All right. So I was talking about the importance of having some metrics and tangibles to begin to build a case for this, because when Ray first had his moment of inspiration, he certainly didn't have all the solutions. He didn't have the answers. He just had the conviction that Intetrface needed to become a restorative enterprise. He did see the business opportunity. He started studying like crazy and learning about traditional industrial models where so much was wasted throughout the life cycle of products, and he immediately saw a business opportunity. Could you imagine eliminating the concept of waste? And beginning in 1995, 1996, we began to track how much money was saved by waste elimination strategies alone at the company. And since 1996, we've saved more than $440 million in waste-related savings alone. So this just helped to build a case in the early days with shareholders, potential shareholders, boards of directors. Excellent. So this new journey, I think, speaks to the importance of never underestimating the power of a really strong, bold vision. And this isn't just about coming up with a vision statement or coming up with new marketing materials. This is about keeping a dialogue fresh and alive about the values that Umar Haig was talking about earlier today, needing a values revolution. And essentially with this mind shift I was talking about around transforming Intetrface, this, again, was not just about creating a new vision statement. However, I think it is important to think about what kind of language you begin to use. So in the early days when the journey began, Ray would talk about this journey as the company's collective climb up Mount Sustainability, and the metaphor of a mountain was really quite powerful in those days. The idea of a collective journey sort of led to this notion of a higher purpose. This was more than just making the most sustainable carpet tile products available on the marketplace. This was about showing the industrial world that there is a better way. This also evolved into the company's mission or promise to eliminate any negative environmental impact by the year 2020. And when I talk about, no, it's not shifting. Oh dear. Oh well. When I talk about keeping the the dialogue fresh about the company's vision, we end up rethinking or reframing the dialogue around, for example, getting off oil by the year 2020. And this is all about a whole different set of design principles. So not only does that mean reducing energy consumption, and of that energy consumption relying on renewables, it's about principles of dematerialization, less is more, using the minimum amount of ingredients for maximum performance possible. It's being mindful of what's happening throughout the life cycle of our product. So by relying on tools like life cycle assessment, we're able to better understand where the greatest impacts are happening throughout the life cycle of our product. Intetrface is a petro-based company. Nylon comes from oil. Reducing the amount of nylon in our products is a strategic decision around creating the most sustainable carpet tile product out there for our customers. It's also about having the mechanisms in place to fully recycle our products back into new products indefinitely, and not compromising durability, building products that are durable, that don't need to be installed with glue, that don't need to be replaced year after year. This fundamentally requires a life cycle approach and finding solutions to, for example, in the US, where there's 3.8 billion pounds of carpet that end up in landfills every year. So we can, no problem. I really apologize for this. It's unfortunate. So having the mechanisms in place to ensure that our products can be diverted from landfill and incineration options, given new life indefinitely, but also breaking our dependency on virgin raw materials, breaking that dependency on oil or virgin nylon, for example, which has huge economic benefits. By being able to eliminate our dependency on oil, by using more and more sources of recycled materials or rapidly renewable materials, we can also keep our prices relatively stable compared with our competitors by breaking that dependency on the price volatility of oil as well. So there's that side of the story that's an important factor to consider. Just for we've also, I think, one really important part of this story that I think is a wonderful success to celebrate is how this notion of inspiring solutions, I talked about this journey as being one that's impossible to pursue alone. And it's required some really tough business decisions over the years, being able to work with yarn suppliers, for example, who are willing to make the investments and commitments around technologies to recycle nylon. Nylon is really difficult to recycle. It's expensive. And it's only since 2007 that we've been able to recycle nylon back into new carpet nylon. Before that, we had been recycling our carpet backings back into new carpet backings for several years. But it's through these collaborations that we've been able to get closer to our Mission Zero goals. And it's been exciting to see the success among our suppliers, where they've been inspired to pursue their own sustainability journeys and look to other markets for solutions. So, for example, one of our yarn suppliers, Aquafil, in the last couple of years, have found new sources of recycled materials to create nylon 6, which is which is one of the most common ingredients in our products. They've been able to find sources of post-consumer nylon 6 from used commercial fishing nets. And as a result, they've been able to offer us 100% recycled nylon for our products. We've also been feeding them with, once we've harvested post-consumer carpet, we have a process in place where we're able to cleanly separate the face fiber from the carpet and send those raw materials to our yarn suppliers for re-extraction into new yarn, which we buy back. And this is all about a story around redesigning supply chain, where customers are now becoming suppliers of raw materials. When carpet goes into a job, oftentimes carpet is coming off the floor, and having the mechanisms in place to turn that old carpet back into new, high-performing, durable products is extremely valuable. By harvesting the yarn, sending that to our yarn suppliers, we're now becoming suppliers of raw materials as well, and then buying back the re-extruded yarn for tufting into our own products. But to celebrate their success in their own sustainability journey has been a huge source of pride. And then being able to offer customers really durable carpet tile products that have higher levels of recycled content, which becomes then part of their sustainability story as well. I think, again, I'm sorry that the slides aren't working, but when I was talking earlier about the importance of and the opportunity to pull some insights from biology, I was reminded of a book that I've been reading recently. It's called The Super Cooperators, and it's written by Harvard professor Martin Nowak. And he encouraged us to think about cooperation as the most creative force of biology. This really resonates with this story of transformation of Interface. In the beginning, this seemed to be a journey that not an opportunity to rethink Interface's relationship with the natural world. And as we began to see some success around reducing environmental footprints, this began to be a much bigger story around redesigning commerce, redesigning supply chain, rethinking new notions of cooperation and collaboration, and perhaps rebuilding business as we look to the future is about human beings developing into their full potential as the super cooperators to address the systems change that Umar was talking about earlier today. As we move forward at Interface, it's been wonderful to celebrate some of the earlier successes around reducing water consumption by 82% globally per unit of production, reducing waste sent to landfill by 88%, reducing energy consumption by 44%, emissions by 37%, and these are numbers globally, which you could see at our website if you're interested. But some of the bigger challenges that remain involve focusing on people. We know that we'll be losing about 30% of our workforce to retirement by the time we reach 2020. And how do we continue to nurture a culture of sustainability within the company? New questions around how does Interface grow and mature into a real global learning organization? We have really passionate people who are driven by this sense of purpose, inspired by Mission Zero and getting off oil. How do we better connect, collaborate, and learn with each other? This is very much a shared journey. And so a focus on learning is one of the big opportunities ahead, as well as continued collaboration to think about what are the infrastructures required to recuperate and reclaim more and more recycled materials. We're just not getting back enough carpet at this point. So those sorts of relationships and collaborations will be key going forward. And on that note, I would love to take any questions and apologize again that my slides were not visible to you today.
My name is Lars Colin. My question is very simple. I didn't really get what the lessons you were referring to, the concrete lessons from biology that you were, it's a fantastic story, congratulations. But what were the concrete lessons from biology that you were thinking of?
Thank you. Well, there are three, and I apologize if I was a bit distracted because they didn't appear on the screen as planned. So a couple of things. Going back to the theme of this book that I closed on, The Super Cooperators, the author, Martin Nowak, encourages us to think about cooperation as the most creative force of biology. And if that's the case, and if human beings are the supreme cooperators, what does this mean for rethinking new business models? And so to make the connection to Interface, rethinking collaboration and cooperation across our supply chain. So customers are now becoming suppliers of raw materials. Suppliers are now becoming customers of raw materials as Interface becomes a broker of recuperating carpet before it ends up in landfill or incineration. So rethinking collaborations across the supply chain. In more technical and product innovation terms, in the early days when this mind shift began to inspire change at Interface, the company was taking inspiration from concepts like biomimicry. Biomimicry is a term that biologist Janine Benyus entitled a book in 1997, really encouraging businesses, individuals, organizations to rethink our relationship with the natural world. So moving from traditional industrial models where perhaps natural systems are viewed as resources for extraction, can we look to nature for inspiration as a mentor, a model, a measure? So thinking about the metabolism of the organization beyond just the financials, looking at all of the inputs and outputs through the organization, modeling this closed-loop system after, say, an ecosystem where there is no such thing as waste. So eliminating the concept of waste altogether from the enterprise. Also looking for sources of inspiration around product design and innovation. So one example is an innovation around products where our design team began to ask different questions around how would nature design a floor or make a floor. And by spending some time reflecting on these questions, at first they seem a little fluffy, but then all of a sudden, by noticing patterns in nature's floors where, say, pebbles on a beach, no two pebbles are exactly alike, yet there's this consistent beauty in the chaos of the difference among each pebble. So could we imagine making a carpet product, styles where no two carpet tiles were exactly identical? And this led to major efficiencies in reducing manufacturing waste, reducing installation waste. It didn't matter anymore, in what direction you installed the tile, which saved in production time, in installation time, but also manufacturing where you have mergeable die lots. You can start and stop a run at any time and not worry about having to cut the remaining pattern of a tile and start fresh again. You can just continue to manufacture. I think that was a long-winded answer to your question, but I hope that helped a little bit. Hi, Jerry.
Jerry Mikulski, thank you very much. It was a really great talk, despite all the slides. This was a really huge change for a corporation that was busy making things. And I think I understand a little bit about how Mr. Anderson came around to it. How did he get the organization to follow him? Do you have any stories about the cultural change aspects of this? Because they took him very seriously. And the entire organization kind of dove into this way of looking at it, as far as I understand it. What did that take?
Thanks for the question, Jerry. And I wanted to start off by saying, by no means do I want to romanticize this journey. We're talking about 17, 18 years of work now. These sorts of changes did not happen overnight. I really want to honor Ray Anderson's vision and leadership approach, because I think that spoke volumes to how this change emerged. I think this willingness to embrace a sense of humility and vulnerability, to ask for help, to challenge all associates across the business to, for example, rethink their job descriptions when it comes to waste elimination. In the early days, I think I mentioned this focus on zeroing out waste, eliminating the concept of waste, was also designed around an incentive program, a sense of competition among different business units across Interface. But I think, so Ray's sort of relentless commitment to the vision, keeping the vision alive, keeping it in dialogue, was a really important part of the transformation. And I think without that persistence and without the metrics as well to build the case in the early days to show that this is possible, to show that there's a real business advantage, a real competitive advantage as well to this new way of thinking, I think helped to push the transformation forward.
Thank you. Thank you.